Do some cool stuff today. All right, this paper. Take one pressure down. We'll get to that in a minute. Y'all good with compressors though, you think? You got a terminal burned off, get you a quick repair tourniquet. We'll talk about condensers a little bit, talk about the IPR valve, talk about vacuum protection, the fusite pins, the internal vacuum protection, scrolls versus recips, which is where we started. Alright. Oh yeah, we're talking about the internal overload. There it goes right there. You guys know it may be a year and a half before you touch a gas furnace again. Like if you don't work, like you guys are gonna be on internship this summer and then back at school this winter. Well, you'll probably touch a few furnaces on internship at the very end of your internship, maybe. No. So it'll be by the time you graduate that you touch a furnace again. So make sure you got your sequence of operation and stuff. That's the biggest thing, sequence of operation. Okay, class. Oh yeah, we talked about condensers. We talked about the train spine fin coils. Said that every condenser is dirty until you wash it from the inside out, unless it's microchannel or spine fin. They're all dirty till you wash them. They will totally fool you. Talk about evaporator coils. Remember, you got the A, you got the N, you got the slant coil. Anything over an A, if it's an N coil and it's dirty, like I'm cutting it loose to clean it. And if it's more than, me personally, if it's more than 5 years old, if I've got to cut it out to clean it, like I'm going to try to get them a new evaporator. All right, let's talk about metering devices really fast. Y'all good with metering devices? Totally talked about them in applications, right? Long, what do you remember about metering devices? Trevor Long? What do you remember about metering devices? What's the metering device's job? To meter. Throttle? You remember all that stuff?
Throttles.
Flashes, right? We boil off a portion of the liquid to cool the remaining liquid, right? Y'all remember all that stuff? We'll go over the refrigeration circuit one time too. Sorry, forgot to. Metering devices. Let's categorize them real quick. Let's get through this so we can get on to some good stuff. Metering devices. If I wanted to categorize them in two categories, what would they be?
TXV.
Okay. Huh? Here, alright, maybe y'all have heard this.
So like fixed.
Yeah, you got a fixed bore.
Yeah.
And we have expansion valves. Because, yeah, TXVs would be by far the most common over there, right? But under fixed bore, probably the #1 thing that you'll see, I call them a flow rater, but it's a piston. And I think Flow Rater is the name brand, like Vice Grip, right? You guys remember how a piston works? Mm-hmm. And one thing about a piston, and you'll see this on heat pump refrigeration circuits, is it actually moves in there a little bit. So when the refrigerant comes in and pushes on the piston, it'll seat it, and then the refrigerant's forced through the middle of it, and it meters it, right? But on a heat pump, whenever refrigerant comes this way or during the off cycle, the piston will unseat and refrigerant can flow around it and not be metered. So it acts like a check valve almost, right? It'll when flow goes one way, it meters it. When flow comes the other way, it just pushes it back and flows around it. That's important on heat pump refrigeration circuits. So you get the flow rater, piston, what else can we put under here? That's by far, that's 95% of them right there. It's gonna be the piston and flow rater. They use a chatlift fitting with the little Teflon ring in there or whatever. Flow rater, you could just have a straight orifice. I think I spelled that wrong. I don't know. York, a lot of times, will just have a straight orifice. It's not a piston. It's not a true piston. It's just a dedicated drilled hole in a piece of brass or whatever. It's just an orifice, right? And then if you want to go old school, or if you want to go like hotel PTAC units or something like that, you can have a cap tube. All the old ring stuff, back in my day, all the old ring stuff was cap tubes. And you don't see a lot of cap tubes anymore, man, unless you're on a window unit or a hotel like PTAC unit, or what else uses a cap tube, like window units, refrigerators, things like that, right? And then, so again, the piston is probably going to cover 90% of fixed bore stuff. 90% of fixed bore stuff is going to be a piston. And then on expansion valves, 90% of them are what? Yep. Number 3 is an AXV. I'm trying to go from most common to least common. EEV or EXV, electronic valve, right? My old house, I put in a Train TAM7 or TAM9, whatever it was, the electric air handler that I put in that. Electric air handler, 4-ton furnace, right, electric furnace. It had an electronic expansion valve in it. I think it had like an 880 stepper motor, so it had 880 positions it could go to on a residential electric furnace, man. So EXVs are definitely in the residential market. There's been a big push for them now for probably 10 plus years or whatever. The high-end ring stuff, once you go to the inverter stuff, 20 plus SEER, even on a gas furnace, the evaporator sitting on top of the furnace is going to have an EXV in it, but the driver, the control board for it, is down in the furnace. And so you gotta wire the evaporator into the furnace so that the driver for it is down in the furnace that controls the valve up in the evaporator. So yep, that's our metering devices. Let's see here, fixed bore. If I'm going to charge a fixed bore unit, I'm going to charge it. You're going to charge by superheat or subcooling?
That one's superheat, I think.
Yep. So if it's fixed bore, charged by superheat. Doesn't mean that you don't look at subcooling. Even if I'm charging a fixed bore by superheat, I'm still watching the subcooling. So Mr. Margworth, when he was teaching here, he'd always say, like, you never want to go up to a unit and try to fix it like this with one eye, right? You're going to watch superheat and subcooling, no matter what. So if we charge this group by superheat, what do we do on expansion valves? Charge it by subcooling. Or the approach method every once in a while. Have you guys ever charged any Linux stuff where they give you the approach chart? We can go over that. Charge by subcooling. Do you know why we charge by subcooling? Or what are these valves? All 3 of these valves are maintaining what? TXV's job is to maintain expansion valves maintain superheat, right? I guess this one don't, my fault. That one maintains suction pressure. But a TXV and an electronic TXV, they're both going to maintain superheat. Do you guys remember on the TXV, like what kind of, roughly, like what superheat is it trying to maintain?
10 to 12. 10
yeah.
to 12.
Yep. 8 to 12, 8 to 15, 10 to 15, something like that. So, yeah. And what you'll see, so yeah, it's probably a bigger range than that. I can tell you guys some stories about some of that stuff too. But EXVs, I know like the screw machines over at the Reynolds building, I think they maintain like 5 or 4 degrees of superheat. It's not much. It's not much at all. What's up, man? Mr. Rock. Remind me to change you after class from late to, or tardy.
I'll get in there and get it now. I totally forgot I was gonna come in here.
I forgot to.
I'm messing with, what's his name?
Hunter?
The president.
Who?
Hunter? I don't know his last name. President? Isn't he the president?
No, that's Ethan.
Oh, Ethan's the president.
Hunter's the guy with like little goatee right here.
Yeah.
He's always got like hair.
Oh, he's always happy, that guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Camera's rolling, so. We got some guys gone today, so I'm videoing it so they can catch up next week. We always make a funny thing about Hunter, is that his name? Yeah, he's just always way too happy, man. Way too happy.
He's so hilarious, dude.
He is, he's a
I
good
like
one.
talking to him. That's who I've been in there with this whole time. I gave him some bugs in his unit, and I was like, I'm hot, fix my unit. He's
Yeah, I
like,
love doing that. Like, I'm just a
That's
homeowner, man.
He's like, is it this? I said, I don't know, I'm just a customer. It
Yeah.
happened when I was at work. I don't know. Bro, fix it.
Always
He's
say,
like, this is hard, man.
Like, my baby daddy gonna be here in 15 minutes. You gonna have this thing going? Cause I need y'all out of here. Alright. Charged by superheat, charged by subcooling. So, and this is not exact, I promise you that. And I can trash talk like ADP coils real quick. I can trash talk Train. I think I mentioned this to one class, I don't remember, but Train had a problem with water blowing off of the coils and stuff. And so they just started putting undersized expansion valves on their 5-ton evaporators. If you had a 5-ton evaporator, it had like a 3-ton valve in it, and it would run like 30 degrees of superheat. And they're like, it's fine, because they were having such problems with water blowing off of the coil and everything. There was a lot of problems with that when we went to ECM motors, man. You guys are learning ECM motors right now, right, Mr. Lamb? When we went from PSCs to ECM, now all of a sudden we're blowing water off of coils like crazy, because we got crap duct systems. Everybody's just like, bedrooms get a 6-inch, and living rooms get an 8-inch. You know, Daddy told me. And so we'd have 3 tons of duct work on a 5-ton system or something, and you stick an ECM system in it, it's going to pressure the bejesus out of that duct work. It's going to move some air, and it's just flying through the evaporator, and it's just throwing the water off the evaporator and stuff. But anyway, so fixed bore, charged by superheat. Here's a loaded question, $1 million question. What's normal superheat for a fixed bore?
6.
Yes. What else?
Like, are
Yes.
you looking for a certain temperature?
There's no, you could have said anything from 0 to 30, and I'd been like, yep. Like, so charged by superheat, fixed bores are just a dumb hole. And so as the head pressure goes up, I'm gonna start flooding more into that evaporator, right? And so what's gonna drive my head pressure up? It's clean, everything's normal, brand new system. What's gonna dictate my head pressure?
Outside air.
Outside conditions, right? Outside air temp. So the hotter it gets outside, the higher that head pressure, the more it's forcing through that stupid hole, right? That's all it is a stupid hole. And so the higher the head pressure, the more it's gonna flood in there. So, I feel bad even saying this on camera, but there's an Okmulgee County rule of thumb I'll show you guys really quick. And it is 100 minus outdoor air equals what your superheat should be, roughly. If you go out and start charging units by this and be like, Boatner at OSUIT said, I'm like, no, I didn't. I said, this is just rule of thumb. Under normal conditions, you can almost take this to the bank. If the house is 72, 74 degrees with normal humidity and stuff like that, you can just go 100 minus the outdoor air. That's what my superheat will roughly be. Always charge it by the charging chart. Whatever the manufacturer says, do that. But I'm saying if you got a Trane condensing unit with a Rheem evaporator with a carrier furnace, and now your charging chart's just out there like whatever. You do whatever you want at that point, right? You don't have a match system. Rule of thumb is that you'll have something close to that. It's not exact at all. I would never charge a unit by that. But if I was just doing a PM or something and it's 90 degrees outside and I've got 10 degrees of superheat, I'd be like, okay. What's your superheat gonna be when it's 100 degrees outside?
Zero.
Sometimes. Once it's about 105, 104, it'll be zero superheat. Here's another loaded question for you guys. If you have 0 degrees of superheat, how much liquid is making it back to the compressor? All of it? 100%? It was never 100%, right? It was a 75-25 mixture, and the expansion line hit the evaporator. So if you have 0 degrees of superheat, how much liquid's making it back to the compressor?
Does it go little but nothing? Yeah, let's say, does it go back at all?
It could be,
Well, then your evaporator's frozen or something?
yeah, something's bad wrong, right? We're not putting enough heat into the refrigerator. We're not putting enough heat in the evaporator, so we're not evaporating it all off. So there is liquid in there. The answer is you have no idea. It could just be 1% liquid. It could be 75% liquid. All you know is that you never evaporated to a vapor completely. I think we'll come back and talk about, do you guys remember the 3 forces that act on a TXV? Spring pressure, bulb pressure, evaporator pressure. Yep. Oh, okay. We'll come back and we'll come back and go harder into TXVs and stuff like that. Everybody good with low pressure controls, high pressure controls?
Yeah.
Feel pretty good about it? We'll come back and hit on fan motors. We'll come back and hit on dual caps. I think y'all are probably pretty good on capacitors, right?
Yeah.
Does everybody know how, if you have a dual cap and you got to replace it with 2 singles or whatever, like you got a 40 plus 5 or a 50 plus 5?
Was that stone wrong? No, that was the other class.
Y'all remember how to do that? We'll come back and hit on that too, just to make sure. Just to make sure before you guys go out on internship, if you're replacing a 60 plus 5 and your journeyman hands you a 60 and a 5, just 2 capacitors that you can wire them up. It's really easy, right? Just don't be the run cap bandit, right? Don't leave it in the box and tape it a little bit and throw it in there or whatever. Like, don't be that guy. I've seen capacitors like dangling from fan motors. You have too, I'm sure. Just fan motors, capacitors just dangling underneath the fan motor and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, you'll
don't.
open it and they'll fall out.
Yeah.
Metal wires.
A live wires just
Really?
falling out. You're like, ah. Yeah. Don't be that guy, man. Don't be that guy. All right, but here's what y'all came to class for today. You ready?
Yep.
Let's talk about checking charge. The $1 million question. Everybody's like, how do I know if this thing's charged all right? First of all, like the manufacturer's charging charge. And hey, you guys go out there on internship and they have you doing just a metric buttload of PMs, like just checking air conditioners. You're like, I'm so sick of washing coils. I'm so sick of checking. It's the best experience you could probably get at first. And I know they get old, but check the charge on every single thing you touch and store it in your brain. Because checking the charge, there is no concrete answers. It's not black and white. There's a whole lot of gray area there, right? You're like, man, I want to get my subcooling up a little bit, so I need to add some more refrigerant. But then if your superheat starts dropping down and diving down, you got to know when to like call it good, right? And you're like, but my subcooling, I need 3 more degrees of subcooling, but my superheat's dropping down. Like, you got to know when to stop. Right? And you just try to get the best of all worlds. And it gets tricky. So when you go out there and you're doing a bunch of PMs, man, store that stuff in your brain. Like, all right, this Linux split on an 85-degree day, it's running this. And I used to cuss. I'm like, why am I doing a maintenance on a brand new system that's only been running, you did it too, right?
It's been here for 6 months.
Right? This thing's
It's fine.
It's been running in air conditioning mode for a month, and I'm out here having to check it, it's
Or
brand new.
What if you go through